Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Hey, Courtney.
Hi, Steph.
Later today, we are going to escape into Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue, which rescues, rehabilitates, and finds forever homes for dogs in need across Texas. But first, you and I are going to talk about exploring trust and nonprofits. How do we know our donations are truly making a difference? We talked about the U.S. Surgeon General's declaration of the loneliness epidemic. One of the statistics that we talked about was trust being on the decline, that only 30% of people reported that they felt that they can reliably trust others, which is extremely low.
I know.
I talked to a lot of people about this podcast, and I've heard a lot of bad experiences with some of the really large nonprofits in terms of inefficiency, talking about government responsibility, efficiency and inefficiency. And the trust factor is so low in America right now. I think people are sometimes questioning, where's my money going? A good example of this, do you remember in 2010 with the American Red Cross?
What happened in 2010?
Haiti.
Oh,
the earthquake
yes.
in Haiti. They raised $500 million. Do you happen to know why this was a controversy?
No, tell me more.
So they claimed that they were helping people find homes for over 130,000 people. After raising $500 million, the reality was that they only built 6 permanent homes. So there was a public outcry that there was a mismanagement of funds, and it raised a lot of questions. When I think of trust, I think of 3 things. I think of transparency, efficiency, and effectiveness. Are you transparent with your dollars? We know that nonprofits have to be transparent with their dollars.
990s.
The Form 990.
Yeah.
And so when anyone questions how effective are nonprofits, I just tell them, look at the Form 990. You'll be able to see that executive comp. You'll be able to see their revenue. You'll be able to see the ratio of expenses that are fundraising versus administrative. The transparency is there. The transparency is further revealed. And of course, not all small nonprofits are included in these, but there's a lot of watchdogs.
Charity Navigator.
Yeah. Charity Watch, BBB Wise Giving, GiveWell, Candid. There's a lot of watchdogs out there. Some of the nonprofits that I've seen have trust issues in the past that are like really big scandals to Congress. We're getting like F ratings on Charity Navigator. I have an example that I'm not going to name the nonprofit, but it was outside of a grocery store. And they said, do you want to give some funds? And I said, you know what? I'm going to go in, get my Starbucks, and I'll be back out in a little bit. And I looked at Charity Navigator.
Yeah.
And it had like an F for the charity. I think my point is, it's just like any for-profit company.
That's correct. Yes.
There's going to be inefficiency or ineffective nonprofits, but there's so much available in terms of transparency and efficiency. I didn't know this. Do you happen to know what a revenue allocation should be for a nonprofit in terms of going back to the program versus administrative and fundraising?
I think it's less than 20%, right?
We were pretty close. They say conservatively 25% or less should be on admin and fundraising. 75% or more should go towards the program. But sometimes nonprofits are small. How many nonprofits are in Austin? Some of these are not even going to be large enough. I think that's why every single episode I'm always asking, what is the impact? The impact that every single nonprofit that I've spoken to is so significant. I always ask them, how big is your team? Most of these nonprofits have 5 or less staff and volunteer-led. It's really incredible the work that they're doing.
Yes.
The reason I bring up this topic is because I have heard doubt from people just in general. Every time I've dived into any nonprofit that I've talked to so far, they're extremely efficient and effective. We talk about transparency, the Form 990. We talk about efficiency, that revenue allocation and where it should be going. And then you talk about the effectiveness, and that's the impact report, right? I always encourage people, look at the Form 990, look at these impact reports. Most of these nonprofits have those.
Absolutely.
And of course, volunteering comes into play. Go volunteer, see what the nonprofit's about. So what are your thoughts?
Exactly what you hit on. Just like you would research what you're going to invest in from a for-profit perspective, do your research for a nonprofit perspective. And the best way to do that, and you said it so beautifully, is to volunteer, especially if it's either a local nonprofit or there's a local chapter of a national nonprofit in your community. Pick up the phone, ask to speak to the development director, ask to speak to the program director, if they even have that person. It might be a one-person show. They would love to talk to you about where the money's going, what their goals are for the year, what population they serve, what population they're not able to serve because they don't don't have the funding, what their fundraising efforts are, where are the gaps. They would love to have those conversations because these people are passionate. We were talking about it before. No one's really going into nonprofit for the money, especially in a big city like Austin, which is so expensive to live in. These people are really passionate about the cause. They're passionate about what they're doing. I have found that they are the most efficient people I have ever worked with. The strings that they're able to pull, couch cushions that they're able to look underneath, the phone calls that they're taking in the middle of the night. You know, when we talk about animal welfare, to say there's an animal in trouble or an animal has been surrendered and they're getting up at 2 a.m. I can assure you, I have worked in many for-profit companies. Me calling the CEO at 2 a.m. and saying I need something, like that's not an option, right? So the lengths that these people go to, the employees and officers and directors and executives of nonprofits to seek out their mission, it really is inspiring. And of course, there's corruption, there's greed. Unfortunately, that can be found in every organization. I really think that is the minority. And for the organizations that I've worked with, I continue to be impressed with how genuine they are in their efforts to just do good.
Yeah, you nailed it, Courtney. I haven't spoken with a single person that even seems like money is on their mind. They are 100% devoted to the cause. And that's why I brought up, if you donate, the American Red Cross does a lot of good. So I am not trying to say anything bad about the American Red Cross. It's just that was a huge headline. And I think headlines like that do bring up these questions. I've been getting this a little bit more recently by talking about the fact that I'm exploring different nonprofits, and people without even hearing a single word about the nonprofit are skeptical, which is so interesting to me. And I had never had those conversations before. That's why I thought this was worth being brought up, because you just nailed it. A story I heard recently was when I was speaking to someone that founded a nonprofit. They were speaking to someone else and they said, okay, you're going to retire soon. So the next person that you're mentoring to take over this nonprofit, you're going to sell it to them, right? And she had to look at them and go, yeah, I've built this for over a decade. I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. I don't get to sell it to anyone.
That's right.
There is no equity. And that story just, I think, beautifully cements the underlying current that this is for the cause, for the children, for the animals, for the environment, for the education. It's so selfless.
To your point, I hope people question everything, but don't turn away. Don't make assumptions. Question it, get your questions answered. If you're not getting the answers that you're seeking, perhaps that's not the nonprofit to work with. Go to another nonprofit. There are so many worthy ones, but to turn your back and say it's full of inefficiency, I don't trust anything I can't see, or I had one bad experience, that's very short-sighted. And if everyone did that, then unfortunately, like, these nonprofits just wouldn't be able to keep their doors open.
We need more critical thinkers. We need more people who will go and do their due diligence and not just make assumptions.
Right.
Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you heard of this?
No.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is where you have a X and Y axis. On the Y axis is how confident you are on something. The X axis is how much you actually know. When you know just a little bit, you hit this peak of confidence, and then it starts going down the more you know. They say that the people at the top are the loudest on the internet.
They know a little bit.
They know just a little, and they're experts.
Right. And don't question them, because then we'll start moving further down the x-axis. Critical thinking is just something that's missing from society now. I would plead to those individuals, those doubters. Everybody has some kind of passion, whether it's children's welfare, animal welfare, healthcare, or the unhoused population. If they are passionate about something and they don't support a nonprofit, how are they helping to solve the problem? Mm-hmm. How are they helping to contribute to society? So that's either start your own nonprofit or go on the streets and personally help these individuals. But otherwise, you're going to have to open up yourself to some sort of faith, but also do your diligence, and they're happy to talk to you.
Yeah. And go volunteer.
Thanks,
Courtney.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Today, we are escaping into Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue, and we have the director of Addicus, Amy Stanton, here. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
We're so excited to dive into Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue. One of my dogs is from Addicus. Her name is Reese, and we love her.
I was so happy to hear that. I love when I run into adopters, and Reese is a very special dog. I remember her rescue story.
She's the best. So tell us a little bit about Addicus.
Addicus' mission is to shine a light on forgotten dogs around Texas and Mexico. We save most of our dogs off euthanasia lists at shelters. We also save dogs off the street, and sometimes they're dogs chained up in backyards that we're able to get them out of unfortunate living situations. Our whole mission is to get them into loving homes. So we have a 100% volunteer network that's set up to accomplish this.
That's amazing. I know Reese was likely going to go under euthanasia if she was not rescued, and she is very much a part of our household today. We look at her all the time and go, how could anyone put her down? So y'all are doing really incredible work.
I know. Isn't that amazing? And one part that we really love about our job is seeing the impact that the dogs have on their families, because we're really healing the dog's heart, plus we're healing family hearts. We get so much feedback from families how the dog changed their lives. So that's a super rewarding part about what we do.
That's great. I know that Atticus is in the Northeast in Connecticut, but the majority of the work being done is here in Texas. Can you tell us a little bit about where Atticus is having impact?
Atticus was started about 13 years ago in Connecticut. Over time, it branched out, and I started the Austin network, and now our main volunteer base is here in Austin, but we still have some people up in the Northeast that help us with dogs. We pull dogs from the Rio Grande Valley, all over Texas really, but a lot from down there and from Mexico. We adopt them out mainly in Austin, but we do send a lot of dogs up to the Northeast. We send transports up basically 2 to 3 times a month to families that are waiting to meet their dogs. And it's the most amazing thing. The dogs leave here on Thursday and they arrive in Connecticut on Saturday, and they pull into a parking lot with the van with their other rescue dogs in there, with dozens of dogs and families waiting to meet their newest family member, which is so amazing that people will adopt dogs sight unseen. That also speaks a lot to our volunteer program, that our volunteer foster families do such a good job of letting us know what the dog needs family-wise and talking with the potential adopter and making sure it's a good match. We have a really good team of people that are here to set the dogs up for success.
That's incredible. I'm going to switch gears a little bit on some numbers and impact. I know 5,600 dogs to date have been saved.
We've saved a lot of dogs at this point. It varies year by year. Our biggest year was during COVID, where I think our numbers were 800 to 900, or maybe even more than 900.
What was happening with that?
A lot of people were at home and they wanted a friend. So they looked into adopting from shelters, and it was crazy. I'm not even sure how we processed all those adoptions, to be honest with you. But the problem is, after that, when people went back to work, dogs were having separation anxiety because they had never been left alone. So that created a whole nother issue that I know a lot of shelters had returned dogs, and we experienced some of that as well. So I think people are shocked to find out that over 85,000, and I think this is probably conservative, dogs in Texas are euthanized in shelters every year. The fact that Texas is number 1 or 2 in the country shows that there's like a huge need to help these dogs in our state and to make things better and to really get behind the low-cost spay neuter, because that's what we need to get out of this tragic situation.
Yeah, Amy, that number is shocking.
It is. And truly, it's twice a day, 5 to 6 days a week at larger shelters in Texas. And people don't realize you can find anything. You can find a little designer Shih Tzu or a Weimaraner Hunter or Cocker Spaniel, or you can find the world's best mutt. Go check out your local shelter before you go and buy a dog. I understand that there are reasons to buy dogs, but there's so many perfect dogs just waiting for a second chance in a shelter.
You mentioned 100% volunteer run. You are the first nonprofit we've talked to that has no staff. And it's why we added the topics that matter with this episode, because the topic that matter was trust in nonprofits. The reason for that was I ran into some people who were skeptical of nonprofits. They didn't understand what they were doing. And I said, have you talked to a nonprofit? The more I dive into each nonprofit, especially these small, medium size that are impacting Texas, I'm finding nonprofits are doing a whole lot more with a whole lot less than for-profit companies. Tell me a little bit more about how you are making that type of impact on 100% volunteers.
It's amazing because I think the strength of Addicus really is in our volunteer base. We have wonderful, mainly women, but some men too, helping us out. There's a core team of people that do this full time for no pay. We're often rescuing dogs first thing in the morning. The first thing we do is look at our phones until very late at night. So it's a 24/7 kind of operation because at any given time we have about 100 dogs in foster homes. So think about that, like anything can go wrong. And the dogs that we're rescuing are typically not that healthy. We rescue young, old, sick, healthy, but for the most part, these are all very neglected dogs, so they have health issues. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication to keep things running. We find most of our dogs on Facebook. We see shelter pages, dogs sitting next to the road, down by the border, dogs chained up in backyards. We make a decision to pull a dog, and then the next step is we have to figure out how to move that dog hundreds of miles. We work with different transporters that are able to get them up to Austin, which sometimes can feel like running a FedEx operation, getting these dogs moved from so far away in really remote places. After we get them to Austin, we're providing preventatives, heartworm meds, dewormer. We're setting up vet appointments. We're testing all the dogs for tick disease and for heartworm, and we're treating them for all these issues.
Which is a cost.
All of this costs a lot of money and organization. So we have a person who mails out medication to fosters. Same person does medical records, which is more than a full-time job. She's amazing. We have an adoption coordinator that handles all the incoming adoption applications from around the country. And so that's interviewing people. And then we have a reference team that's checking all the references for people that want to adopt. We have a marketing team. We have to have dogs getting posted on Pet Finder and on our own website. And then we have a finance person. We have a person who deals in compliance and making sure their nonprofit status stays up to date. There is a lot of people that touch the life of that one dog. And the strength of Addicus, I really think, is we've been doing this long enough that our system is pretty organized and well set up, and we do a good job of supporting our volunteers. We have some of the most amazing volunteers working for us that move mountains to save dogs.
The next time someone is skeptical, I'm going to send this one clip to them because it's incredible. 100% volunteer ran approximately 10 touch points per dog. Marketing, finances, getting transportation, everything.
And fundraising, I forgot. We
And
also have to
fundraising.
constantly be fundraising.
I know that you said it's about $400 to $500 a dog just in medical.
Our dogs range a lot. A healthy dog probably costs $400 to $500 to do all the basic vetting and adopt out. We don't have very many dogs that fit that category. On average, we lose about $400 for every dog that we adopt out because some of our dogs are $8,000 dogs, some are $5,000. It just depends. We treat all kinds of things like parvo, distemper, broken bones, amputations, eye removals, lots of heartworm, a lot of tick diseases, anaplasmosis, Ehrlichia, Lyme disease.
You've become like a vet, right? Like you,
Yeah,
you could
I
probably
actually have a
diagnose-
little, we order meds from Mexico. So we use vets for most things, but the day-to-day preventatives and antibiotics, we're able to help our fosters out with that because we can't control our medical bills otherwise. We do a lot in-house because we've seen most everything. And then the thing is, when people think, oh, that seems like a lot, what you also have to realize is we are not getting the dogs that usually have been going to a vet their whole life. Most of these dogs probably have never gone to a vet, have never received vaccines, never been dewormed. The needs for these dogs are always more expensive than just your average dog. And we also have have crazy exotic diseases that you primarily just see in rescue dogs. A lot of the vets that we've worked with before, they're like, I've only ever read about this. Like distemper, for example, most vets don't deal with distemper very much. We've probably had 80 to 100 cases and have moved mountains to save these dogs on our own, doing vetting at our own houses. We really have a great volunteer team.
Amy, you walked into the recording studio and said, okay, what is your size dog? I said, I don't know, medium. And you said, well, I typically can look at a dog and know how much they weigh. And it's because of how involved you are with the medical care and figuring out, right, what type, what.
You have to learn this stuff. We intake these dogs and we have a process. Like we don't immediately start sending them out for vaccines because we try and get them healthy because they're all covered in ticks, fleas, full of worms. So we do this whole anti-parasite protocol that we repeat in 3 weeks. And then we start moving into their next phases. We have 2 dogs right now that had transvenereal cancer, which is something seen a lot down by the border in Mexico. Vets here have not seen it. We're doing all these chemos that are experimental, but we're helping these dogs find a new beginning.
100% volunteer ran, medical expenses, transportation, getting the dogs found. Addicus must have a significantly high percentage of revenue that goes straight to the dogs. I want to talk about fundraising. I know there's a few ways that your volunteer team raises funds. Can you talk about that for just a quick moment?
So when we pull a really sick looking dog, we will post dog photos on Facebook and fundraise that way. And we have a pretty big support group on social media. So we get donations that way. Sometimes we do email. We work with the Cuddly organization, which works with rescues all around the country, and they blast out their email and raise money for us. Those are the ways that we do them in-house. And then we have a couple signature events every year that we raise most of our money that are super important for us because, as I said, we lose $400 on average. So it's like a treadmill of trying to keep up with the cost of running a rescue. On top of the medical, the transport costs are large. Then we have boarding. Some dogs are in boarding, whether foster can't take care of them for a while, or sometimes we pull dogs and we don't have fosters. And then training. When we have a dog that has significant behavior issues and we've committed to that dog, we have to put the dog in board and train. Vetting is our biggest expense, but board and train are also significant.
And you have the Iron Cactus April 17th and Pause for a Cause at Central Machine Works on May 17th. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Would love to switch gears and talk about some stories that connect us to Atticus.
Just recent one that stands out to me was there was a Weimaraner in Mexico that lived on a chain for years. And we have the video of her there. And whether it was cold, hot, rainy, she had a bucket of dirty water. And sometimes she had food, sometimes she didn't. She literally lived like that for years. One of our rescue partners in Mexico got her off the chain and she brought her home and we brought her to Austin. It's been about a month now. The second this dog got here, she was the best dog. And she's the best dog with other fosters that have come through the house teaching them the ropes. She's loving, she's well-mannered, she's smart, she's amazing. To think that dog lived for years just sitting there where no one cared for her. And she was 25 pounds underweight, so she was emaciated. We just sent her to the vet and found out she has 3 tick diseases, which imagine how that must make you feel. It's Lyme disease. You feel horrible. And she has heartworm. So this dog was so sick, but just seeing the pictures of her with her foster family here and the videos of her running in the backyard and playing, it's so rewarding.
I can't gauge whether I'm more sad for her or more angry at the fact that someone wants to have a dog. Why have a dog?
I don't know. Texas it's either number 1 or number 2 in the country for euthanizing dogs because the overpopulation issue is out of control. And there's certain areas of Texas that are worse. The mentality is you just don't spay neuter. So one pair of not fixed dogs can potentially turn into the offspring of tens of thousands. If you look at the puppies, having puppies, there's just no way to keep up with it. Spay neutering is the most critical thing that Texas needs to focus on. But yes, in Texas, we see lots of dogs on chains, and they changed the law a few years ago. I think it has to be a certain length, maybe 5 feet. The dog's supposed to have shelter and water, but it's a horrible life. Dogs don't want to live on chains. Dogs are meant to be family members.
Have you read the book Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari? I'm reading it to my kids right now. They would say that it's all right because it's nonfiction, but it's actually really good. It says 15,000 years ago is when they have the first evidence of a domesticated pet. And of course, it was a dog.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
They found it in northern Israel.
That is amazing. Dogs are so loyal and they're so pure. Their love is just like no other. When you've had a bad day, like your dog's right there for you. And they're just so innocent and they don't have a voice. And that's really what we try to do, is give them a voice, because without humans speaking on their behalf and setting up a framework for them to find a second chance, the alternative is pretty bad.
Do you have any other stories you wanted to share?
Yeah, another story is my own dog, Hash Brown. We pulled Hash Brown from a kill shelter down by the border. He was a little white scruffy, weighed 15 pounds. He weighs about 25, 30 now. He was very underweight. So we brought him up to Austin, and unfortunately he broke with distemper, which is the worst diagnosis that we like to hear because it's so difficult. Most vets will just say to euthanize the dog. It can cause a lot of neurological issues. It's painful, it's stressful, it's horrible. It's hard to get support. As I mentioned, we've done a lot of distemper dogs, and we do a lot of out of the box protocols to try and save them. And a lot of those protocols you're just doing at your house because vets won't treat the dogs. So I did this for 2 or 3 weeks with Hash Brown at my house, where you're doing IVs and intravenous meds and all this crazy stuff. He wasn't getting better. He was starting to tremor. So we sent him to this amazing woman that we work with in Alabama. There's a whole underground network of people who rescue dogs around the country that are just amazing. And Anu has saved over 200 dogs with distemper, which is like a miracle. She has her own protocol that's very time intensive and complicated. So our medical records person, her husband has a plane. So Barry got in his plane and he flew Hash Brown to Anu in Alabama. Anu had him for a couple of months. He got really bad. He had to learn to walk again, but she saved him. A few months later, we had to bring him back to Austin, and we hired a couple of women that drove. All of this involves thousands of miles, time, figuring things out, sourcing medicine from Mexico, from a vet in Houston that makes this serum no one's ever heard of. Just crazy stuff. We did all that. And now I have Hash Brown, and I love this guy so much. He's the best dog. He still has a little bit of a shake, but he's the happiest dog. He takes meds every day. It's amazing all the time and effort we put into him, but he's worth every minute of it.
I love it. The amount of touch points that Hash Brown has had with different volunteers.
I know. And Barry has flown dogs all over Texas for us, and he does this all volunteer.
Shout out to Barry, because you know what? We've talked about the philanthropy gender gap shows that women volunteer and show up more for nonprofits than men. It's not significant, but it's meaningful.
One of our board members is also a guy, and then we have amazing guy fosters too. But in general, I would say 95% it's women.
I love that story. Would love to hear a good brag from you. A good brag is just a chance for you to talk about something that you've done that you're proud of recently. And this is to encourage people to start talking and sharing about things that they've done that they're proud of.
I know this is going to be a shocker, but I helped some dogs. I actually started a for-profit company called Lucky Love Dog, and we make dog collars, harnesses, leashes, and we're an e-commerce business. I also support other rescues around the country and dogs in shelters and so forth. Last week, we sponsored the medical care for some dogs that were super sick in a Georgia shelter.
I love this. What made you want to start Lucky Love?
I have a background in marketing, and I didn't feel like there were lots of cute collars out there at a good price point. I wanted to combine it with the rescue and giving back and spreading the word about adopting. So it all worked out perfectly. So I have the best of both worlds. I have this great company that supports rescues all over, and then I'm the director of a rescue here in Texas with an amazing team of volunteers.
I looked at the Lucky Love dog collars. They're so cute.
Thank you.
Highly recommend if you have a pet, go
Yep.
support something good.
Yeah, you can feel good about shopping with us. And I design all the patterns, and they're unique and they're soft and comfy. We also donate a lot of product. Like most of our dogs end up with our collars and our martingales when they travel to Connecticut. So we support rescue.
Lucky Love Dog has donated a lot to dog shelters, to Atticus.
We have, I think the accountant said it was 83,000 last year.
Yeah.
We're a small business with a big heart.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
So now that you've bragged, we want to give listeners a chance for bragging rights. And there's a few ways. One is to foster. And the reason I'm starting by saying foster is I do want to give a shout out to Kimmy Wickham. The reason I know Atticus and the reason I have Reese through Atticus is through Kimmy Wickham. She's incredible. She has fostered 10 fosters, 1 foster fail, and she has had 8 friends adopt a dog through Atticus.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And she does fundraisers. She's wonderful. Fostering for sure. That's the most critical need. You don't have to be home all day long. You can have an office job. You don't have to have other dogs. You don't have to have ever had a dog. You just have to want to have a desire to help dogs and help them find their forever family.
How long do people typically foster for?
It can be anywhere from 3 weeks to some people end up with a dog for over a year, but that's not super common. We try to get dogs adopted out within a few months. We would love to find corporate sponsorships and partners that we could work with because we've become so big. That would take something off our lap so that we didn't have to constantly fundraise and we could focus on saving more dogs. So corporate sponsorships, we're looking for grants. We would love to have a grant writer if anyone would be interested into looking at putting together grants because that's a very specific thing. And volunteers. We have lots of different jobs within our volunteer program, but fostering is the biggest one. I have to give a shout out to Reese's foster. Reese was rhubarb when she was with us, and she was part of a group of, I think, 35 dogs that we saved when we heard about some horrible things happening at this shelter. And we have a foster who took care of rhubarb, and I don't even know how many dogs they fostered, but right now she probably has 12 dogs at her house. She and her husband, I think, work at home, and they take care of all these dogs, and they do a great job. We have fosters. You can foster one dog a year, or you can be a repeat foster. It's a totally flexible.
I'm so thankful for them fostering because we love Reese. She's part of our family.
I feel like it's a miracle every time one of these dogs gets out because there's literally more dogs out there that need help than all the rescues in the world put together can help. The overpopulation issue is just insurmountable. So without spay neutering promoted and low-cost spay neutering, it's just a really difficult situation.
I think when I was young and very naive, I would go, oh, the ones that they're going to euthanize are probably like bad actors. You think nobody's euthanizing dogs that are just living.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. No, they can be healthy. They can be puppies. They can be moms about to go into labor. I had no idea. I thought it was like a one-time problem. And the more I looked into it, I realized this happens twice a day. It could be 20 dogs a day. It could be 30 dogs a day. And it's happening in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and all the big cities, plus all these rural, remote shelters. We tend to work with smaller shelters that aren't getting any publicity. They tend to work in buildings that weren't even built to be a shelter.
It's very enlightening talking to you because knowing how much all the different costs that go into helping these dogs get to a happy life, get to a decent life. 100% volunteer, and I can't say that enough because it's just so much passion that's behind rescuing these dogs. I think it's incredible work. Chance for bragging rights, foster, donate, corporate sponsors, show up. I've mentioned this before. We will be talking about corporate responsibility in a future episode with the Texas Stars Foundation. And there is a 1% pledge. Have you ever heard of the 1% pledge by companies? I work at a company called Atlassian. Atlassian and Salesforce co-founded this 1% pledge. And it's 1% of product, time, and either profit or equity. If you're not profitable, at least the equity. So that unicorns, companies at a loss, could give something back to the community, to social welfare. What I learned by looking into this topic is $4 to $7 billion a year are of program match through things like that 1% pledge and others actually claimed by employees. That's really sad because there's 19,000 companies that have taken this pledge. And now this $4 to $7 billion is not tied to these 19,000 companies. But if that is how much is going unclaimed, there's so much money out there.
That's right.
You would think that most of these employees, it's not that they're not giving, it's that they're forgetting to claim the match.
Yeah, we remind our volunteers a couple times a year, and we've gotten some money from doing that.
So foster, donate, social media engagement, just like, comment, share.
There's a dog for everyone. We have some dogs that we have over a year that we think we're never going to get rid of. We just adopted out a dog. I think they had her 2 or 3 years. She's doing so well with her new adopters, but I'm patient foster kept her that long.
I'm in love with the ugly dogs. We were just at a deli the other day, and this person was holding like the ugliest dog I've ever seen, and I could not stop looking at it. It was so precious.
That's so funny. Yeah, we rescued one last night from Mexico that I've nicknamed Chewbacca because he's like this hairy thing, and he looks like Chewbacca. So I like the funny looking ones too. I have quite a motley crew myself.
Yeah, go grab some of the ugly ones. They're the best. Well, I'm so happy that there's people like you doing the work that you do. It's incredible. Our family would be so different without you guys. So thank you.
It was great meeting you. I appreciate that.
It was great chatting. All right, thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
Hey listeners, if you've ever had a dog in your life, you know they're man's best friend. And yet every year, tens of thousands of dogs in Texas are euthanized simply because they don't have a home. It's heartbreaking, but here's the good news. There are people out there doing something about it. Amy and her team at Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue aren't just sitting back. They're out there rescuing dogs from the worst situations. They're taking late night phone calls. They're searching rural areas for abandoned and chained up dogs, hopping on planes to transport pups to safety. And the kicker is, they don't get paid for this. They do it because they care. And honestly, we should all care. It's super easy to help. Hit share. Seriously, if you can scroll TikTok, watch dance trends, or send memes, you can press a button to help a dog find a friend. My friend Cammie does it all the time. Just one share can make the difference in a dog's life. Want to step up even more? Foster a pup. It's temporary for you, but life-changing for them. Donate. Every dollar helps cover medical care, food, and transport. Follow Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue and share their posts because you never know who in your network might be looking for a new best friend. And hey, doing good should be rewarding, right? Sign up and you could win Texas Stars hockey tickets. Because who doesn't love winning a prize for making the world better? Share how you're supporting Addicus Legacy Dog Rescue with #GoodBrag and tag us or let us know. Let's spread the word and get these dogs the homes they deserve. We will see you next time as we escape into Special Olympics, Texas. We are talking with the 5-time Special Olympics Texas gold medalist, Nick Williams, about competition and the impact of inclusive sports. You don't want to miss this one. Big thanks to Nightlight Insurance for making this podcast possible, Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios, Michelle Anderson at Pinkle Toes Photography, and Tim Nicholson for branding. Until next time, when we escape into a cause.